Welcome back to Garage Monologues with Jay Swanson. That's me. If you're listening to this, you're hearing it. Thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying it. This is Season 2, Episode 6, wherein I dive into the backstory behind the app that we're working on right now. And then we're getting close to making available for some testing, and hopefully in the next couple of months will actually be available for you if you're visiting Paris to plan your trip to use it while you're here on the ground. And it's got a long ways to go, lots of growth and change. There's a lot. It's really exciting, but we might have something for you soon. Today's episode is going into the backstory behind where this has all been coming from. For years and years, I've been working on this for a really, really long time, referred to it as one of the secret projects for a really long time, and I just never really told the story publicly before, so that's what this episode is all about 5 or 6 months ago. So if you want to listen to episodes like this, I mean, you would have known about this 5 or 6 months ago. If you're a patron and you're listening to my podcast there, you'd have access to the members only feed. And if you're hearing this message that I'm giving you right now, it means you're not on the members only feed. So if you'd like to get these messages, if you'd like to get these episodes a full season ahead of everybody else, then jump on Patreon right now at patreon.com/JSwanson. You have a whole season's worth of content to catch up on if you'd like to get caught up on the podcast. And of course, more episodes coming out here soon. I just did one with my buddy Mark Schreim, a surgeon and American Ninja Warrior passing through Paris. And hopefully soon, my plan is to have my dad on the podcast, which would be also really good. And if you like my dad, as I do, hopefully you'll enjoy that too. But in any case, you'll be able to hear both of those episodes and any others that come out in the near future in the next 6 months. So no worries there. Thanks for listening. And now, with no further ado, on to this episode explaining the game, the history behind it, and how it's turned into something a little bit different today. Swanson. Jay Swanson. Hello and welcome back to Garage Monologues, episode something, season 2. I don't remember what. I think it's episode 5 or 6. We're doing a back-to-back monologue since we did back-to-back interviews. And this is the episode in which I'm going to try and tell you a little bit of the history of the app and the game and what's going on there. There are certain details that I'm going to keep to myself for now just because it's sensible to keep some stuff to myself, both just because we're working on figuring a few things out, and also because it's fun to keep the mystery alive. And also, I'm not really worried about like competition or anything like that. I think that ideas are a dime a dozen, and at the end of the day, what distinguishes a good idea from a non-idea is execution, and that is the challenge that is before me right now, execution. And I feel very excited to jump into it, a little bit overwhelmed by it, a little nervous, but mostly excited. And then I'm going to try and reframe the nerves as also excitement. For the last, since I first lived here, so it's been a decade in my brain, I always imagined sharing how to get around Paris, how to see the city. Basically, how do I turn the tour guiding that I was doing for friends and family when they came into a game, like a self-guided, self-fulfilling, joyful prophecy of guaranteed happiness in Paris if you're coming as a visitor. And that has evolved into a couple of different forms over time, but I always imagined it as being a thing. I called it Travel Unlock originally. I think I still own the URL for Travel Unlock. And then that's why I called it Travel Unlock, was because the website was available, or the domain name was available. Not the best name. And I have since changed the name of the game since then, but in the interim, I just kind of went through and, those original videos that I made way back in the day about like how to get around Paris and see all the big sites quickly, how to, use the metro, all the stuff that I did long before I was daily vlogging. This is like 2013, 2014, maybe even before that. It might have been 2012, 2013. I was trying to figure out how do I turn that into like a tour, into a game, and you would only get credit for actually going to those locations. And so even then it was very like geo-localized. Like I was like, okay, well, if you in order to earn points, earn credit, whatever, you have to actually go to the locations. And, when you get there, you get more information about them. You get a little story and so forth. And it was the basic skeleton of an idea that I still think is good. But it's developed since then. So You may remember, if you've been watching for a long time, you may remember that back in, I guess, 2018, probably, we made an analog game, right? So we made what we called the game because we didn't have a name for it really then, and it was just for fun. Was kind of a test because I was looking at getting help. I was talking to a friend who is a developer at YouTube, and I was asking him if he would be interested in joining me. And he liked the ideas that I had, but the golden handcuffs of a job like developing for someone like Google or, well, YouTube, hard to get away from. So I couldn't really steal him. And developers are expensive beyond that. So not only, it's just a really, really uphill climb to get something made if you're not a developer yourself. And I was trying to learn. I've definitely I dove into C# multiple times. I was learning how to code in Unity, which is a game engine, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoy it because I love 3D modeling. I've done a little bit in the past. I enjoy coding to some degree, although I'm not a gifted or I'm not a coder, but I've definitely gone through many, many tutorials and learned the basics, and I definitely would like to go back and re-engage with that. So I was doing that on my own, but like at the end of the day, you can only do so much. And really what I bring to the table is content creation, like the quality, hopefully, of the content on the ground, the information that you have when you're here in Paris, me, personality and so forth, vision for the business. Like I bring a lot to the table. The one thing I'm really lacking is the technical know-how and the time to do it. Because I would love to, again, at some point I'll sit down and I'll really learn how to code because I really want to. I just don't have the time. And in building any form of a business or just a life in general, a lot of that's saying no, right? Like you have to figure out where are my strengths, what am I offering to this, and how do I get help for all the stuff that would be better served by somebody else. Not even that I don't want to do or that I wouldn't enjoy doing, but sometimes it's really like, well, someone else is going to do this better. I'm going to do this part better, so let me focus on that. So he was interested, but he was like, why don't you should do some testing, which is not what I really wanted to hear, but he's like, you should test the idea and see how it goes. Like try to come up with a way of doing it without an app. And so that's where the game came from. I actually remember talking to him. I was at this hotel. I think it was the Davenport Tower or something downtown Spokane, Washington. I was back visiting family, and I remember talking to him in the hallway about it, and I was pretty disappointed because I was like, oh man, I really thought he was going to come on board. And I tend to want to just dive right in, like let's just build the thing. That's how I've been for a long time. This has changed. However, I at the time was like, we should just go full in, like this idea is so great, let's just do it. And wisely, he told me to go test it. Like, does anybody even want to do something like this? So when I got back to Paris, I kind of worked out, okay, like I'm going to, come up with a way of roping people into something like a scavenger hunt, let's say, around Paris, because the actual game elements that I had imagined and that I have continued to imagine aren't really possible in an analog form. Some of them are, like you could do some of them that way, but like really controlling the experience and making it something interactive is hard. And especially because the goal for me isn't to get you to play a game like to stare at your phone. It's to play a game with the city. Like I want you to actually pay more attention to the city around you, to explore more, to see more, to appreciate Paris in a way that you wouldn't without this game. That's really the goal. Like it is a tool to better explore and enjoy the city. It's not meant to supersede that experience or to replace it in any way. But I think that it's very possible. Like the Flash Invaders, which many of you have seen me play. Space Invader is this street artist, if you don't know, who puts up tile mosaics originally based off the game Space Invader, and then he's branched out from there. But they're like pixel art mosaics that he puts all over the world. And any city you go to that he's been, you can actually collect them. So you can go find them, you can flash them with your phone, like basically take a picture in the app, and then it scans it, registers like where you're standing, like verifies basically that you're actually there and that it's a real invader, and then gives you points for it. And for me, when I travel to cities that he's been to, it's a lot of fun to go and hunt for them because it takes you to parts of the city that you would never go without it. Like there are parts of Lyon that I went to, or Marseille, that in London, like a bunch that I would never have walked that much. I never would have gone down that many side streets, or, just found myself in neighborhoods off the beaten path if it wasn't for him. And I love exploring off the beaten path. So it's a really good motivator to get there and then see what you find. And having that kind of it's not really a structure. I mean, you have to, if you have a map and you dig in and you try to do some research, you can build some structure for yourself. But yeah, it's just a good step away from wandering aimlessly on your own, because sometimes you just don't know what to look at, where to go. And if you're in a new place, you might just not really fully appreciate it, which is normal. That's part of travel. And so that's one of the inspirations. Obviously, another inspiration is like Pokemon Go and seeing how much everybody actually got outside to play that. And it's still going. Pokemon Go is actually still going, believe it or not. It has a very strong user base, and people really love it because Pokemon. There are so many people that love Pokemon. And so it's possible, like getting people outside, getting them moving, getting them exploring and appreciating the city. And the idea that I have ultimately is something that could go worldwide. It doesn't have to just be in Paris, but Paris is the perfect place to test it and to try, because there's so many visitors every year. It's a vibrant city. There are probably cities that would be easier in some ways, but I think if we gear it towards tourism and people that are visiting for the first time and helping them have a good time, there are a lot of things we can learn from that we can then apply moving forward. So back to the analog version of the game, that was kind of what we were doing, was like, can we actually motivate people to go into local businesses? Can we track that exchange? And can we improve people's time? Because the recommendations that I make, whether it's in my guide or in the game, in my vlog, whatever, is mostly geared around trying to make sure you have a good time. It may not be the cheapest. It's never going to be the most expensive, because I'm just not doing expensive stuff in this city. It'd be interesting. I think we should, at some point, if and when the Parisian establishment actually cares that I exist, there's a chance that we can start getting into hotels and doing some more luxury stuff and have like a little bit of a luxury side of things, because there are a lot of people obviously interested in that. I just don't think it's not exactly where my interests lie on the day to day anyways. And a lot of that's just because I can't afford it, I guess. But so kind of limited on that scale, on that front. But my recommendations are always going to be things that I've actually gone and seen and done and tried. It's very rarely on the recommendation of others. And when it is, it's usually because I've heard a lot of good stuff, and I'm willing to just say, hey, everybody I know loves this thing. You'll probably like it. So we just gathered together a small group of restaurants, cafes, vendors, basically, that were willing to do like discounts and freebies for people that were playing the game and came in. So if you went in and you said, hey, I'm playing Jay's game, they would give you like a little sticker as proof. We had little Frank stickers, little coins, and you would get that, and then you could buy more stickers. We had unique stickers at every location that you could purchase if you wanted to. But just for saying you're playing the game, you got the sticker and then like a discount or a freebie, and you ended up going to a place that you liked. There are a lot of people that used the game as a recommendation engine and didn't ever say that they were there to play the game. They just went and tried it. And that's okay. That it's just kind of like, it's hard to track that. And this is also where like doing the analog version kind of breaks down, because you also can't really do the fun stuff. Like what we created was a recommendation engine. It's like, here, go eat at these places, but it forcibly made it pay to play. When I imagine the final version being openly, available to play, I don't really want to put that barrier in people's way. And so where we're at now is kind of this middle ground where it'll still be kind of pay to play, but you'll get like an in between, where instead of having my guide, so I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself, because basically what happened was that analog version was a lot of fun to see the reactions. Like everybody was happy. The people that played it had a good time. All of the vendors we worked with were really grateful and like enjoyed it, because you guys are amazing. So like whoever's playing it is generally gonna be great. And everybody loves tourists in that sense, that like people are coming and they're there to have a good time. So they're all smiles. They're looking to have a great time. It's just a really nice combination of groups of people, like bars and restaurants that I love that are really friendly, and
viewers, subscribers, fans, followers, whatever, that are also really lovely, coming together and just having a great time. So there's no loss there. The idea was that like I was tracking, using those stickers to track how many people actually played. And then I didn't end up making any money, but I recouped the cost of printing all the stickers, ultimately by selling the stickers to the locations. Like their first round was free, and then they had to buy more to stay in the game. And yeah, and that was kind of just hey, will money change hands? Will we actually be able to do this? Because it's kind of a three-way deal between the vendor, the player, and me. And then we just kind of let it go because the pandemic happened, was part of it. It was a lot to maintain. Also, just physically, manually, you're having to run around to different parts of the city to, get stickers and follow up, and there's just all that. But we learned a lot. It was successful in the sense that like everybody was happy. I only had to cut one place out because they didn't maintain the quality of service that I would expect, and then, which is a thing that I plan on doing more of in the future, which is why the interactivity is good, because you can tell me if the places are treating you well, so I can maybe not recommend them if they don't in the future. But yeah, pandemic happened and whatever else. And so over the pandemic is when I started trying to code this together. Like I was like, well, how do I turn this into like something that we can actually have on a phone, walk around and keep track of things and gamify it more, because I would like there to be parts. The vision of it is that you go to the Eiffel Tower, you go to Notre Dame, you go to some small fountain that you've never heard of, and you get rewarded for discovering it, and then you get further rewards for engaging with it, or for exploring it, for solving riddles and puzzles and mini games, and that you spend a little bit more time in front of a church you otherwise would have just walked right past, because now you're like, oh, you're looking at the statues and the engravings, and you're actually paying attention to what's in front of you, and hopefully you learn some things along the way. And of course, we'll throw irreverent jokes in there, because that's just the way I am, but we'll have a really good time with it. And so I was trying to figure out how to make this happen. And so I saved up some money, and I decided to hire a development firm that had worked with a friend of mine. I was advising a friend on his project in the States, and the developers that he was working with, he was very happy with, and so he connected me with them. And so I reached out, and they had time, and we wrote up a contract. Oh, I'm skipping a step. I did make an MVP basically in Figma, but you might know Figma now because they got sold for billions, or they were purchased by Adobe for 20 billion, I think, something insane. And it's basically a really high-level design tool. Well, mid-level design tool, whatever you want to say about it. But like, it's what I was able to create was kind of an interactive slideshow that looked and felt like an app. And so you're able to click through, and I was able to create like a baseline experience for what I wanted the game to be and how you would engage with it. And then I walked friends through that demo. It wasn't geolocalized because Figma can't do that, but it was able to, we kind of went to a spot in Paris, and then I'd pre-created the route via screenshots and whatnot. And then we walked through it, and, I got my responses from people as to how they liked it, what to work on, and so forth. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. There were a couple of bits of feedback that, to work on, but ultimately, like the baseline of the experience was fun and people liked it. And so I was like, okay, this is where we're at. So the money that I had saved up, I then spent on a alpha version, you would say, or not an alpha. It was an MVP. So the first one was basically proof of concept, and then we made an MVP trying to just like prove again that it was fun without the ability for me to really do anything with it. So that next stage also went well, had some more bugs to figure out, had some feedback from people that wanted other things, which is ultimately what you're going to get, like, especially when you have a really simple idea that could go in a million different directions, and could be what anyone imagines it to be, kind of a thing. You have to stick to your vision, because very quickly people start telling you, oh, I don't really like what you're doing with it, but I would do this. Which, is a sign that you can keep working on it and make your idea better, but it's also like a warning, because if you aren't clear on what you want and you don't stick with it, you're just going to lose the plot very quickly and entirely if you're not careful. So, I don't know if you can hear the dog snoring, but I'm going to poke him because
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Garage Monologues. If you'd like to listen to it without these little messages that I throw in at the beginning and the end, and you'd like to get these episodes a full 6 months earlier, 5 to 6 months earlier, make sure you head over to patreon.com/jswanson. And if you become a member, you get access to the members only feed. And as we get stuff wrapped with the app, like not wrapped, but once we get it to a place where it's out in the world, hoping to circle back. There are going to be some really fun new perks coming out on Patreon this year. Not exactly sure when, but I'll be working on that here soon. So, there's a lot of there are already a lot of perks. There will be a lot more. Patreon.com/jswanson. And now back to the story.
Cooper interrupts like every podcast at this point. That's just a fixture of this at the moment. So we move forward with another version, an alpha version, where the difference between the MVP and the alpha was the MVP was another proof of concept, but with the geolocalization, with the reactivity of like actually walking up to locations and having it be interactive. And then the alpha, so that was another controlled experiment where basically we pre-created a selection of things we could do, but we let the user wander freely. So they were able to go wherever they wanted and then hopefully end up in the right spots with a limited number of spots. I couldn't actually make any real modifications on my own. So the alpha was to build the back end, to make it so that I could actually build locations and riddles, puzzles, whatever. And about halfway through that process of creating that alpha was when the French government sent me that, now, I don't know if you know about it, I would say famous, but ill-fated letter demanding a lot of money that I did not have. Basically, the French government wanted 2 years of charges in advance, plus 20%. It was like 31,000 euros, something like that. They wanted 20. They put it on 24,000 of that on a payment plan, and then they wanted another 7,000 up front, like within a week of receiving the letter. So that was scary and something that my accountant should have warned me about and claimed she warned me about, but certainly didn't do anything to make sure that I was actually paying attention to if she did warn me about it. And you'd think somebody that can see my books would know, like, hey, you should probably watch out for this. Anyways, this is what ultimately led to me moving to another accounting firm not so long after, but I had to pause development on the app. Like, we stopped it, just dead in its tracks. And I had to scramble to figure out what I was going to do to survive. Thankfully, my bank offered me a loan at a very good rate to float me. We were able to cover everything and save my bacon. And that was a year ago now, basically. Just under a year ago from when I'm recording this. I think I found out in like October of last year, but it took me like 2 months to figure out what I was going to do. It was incredibly stressful, and a good reminder of just how stressful financial problems can be, which have been an all too familiar part of my life growing up, and something that I didn't realize I'd gotten quite that much distance from, and it reinvigorated my desire to never go back there again, because I'm always playing pretty close to the edge, just out of probably personality, but I want to be careful, and so. Anyways, we had to stop development of the app. I had a huge reckoning. I had to figure out, what am I doing? Like, I've got all these projects. I'm doing all this stuff. I had burned out right about that time as well. I was just in a miserable spot and overextended and stretched too thin. So I was like, we got to start cutting stuff. So I was like, all right, well, the app's out the window, because it's a lot of work. And for who knows if there'll be any return here. I needed to carve back my video production until I figured out how I was going to proceed with that. I just had to, cut everything out that I possibly could and then slowly start putting it back together. And I mean, emotionally and physically and everything else, like, it was a process to recover and get back to a place where I felt like I could even get back to video production at the level that I'm at now. I was just in a bad spot, and that stress for a couple months really just pushed me right over the edge, I think. It was miserable. So thank you, France, for that. I, specifically URSAF, France didn't do it to me, just their social system. So I just kind of left it on hold for a while and rebuilt, dove into the Paris in my pocket stuff to be like, okay, I need to kind of lean into this side of things, try to sell more copies of my guide. Just like, how do I actually make some money here? I've never been very money focused or driven, but it's like I obviously need it because I gotta pay this future bill, but I also I need to start paying myself. As I put in the video this week, I need to start paying myself first. Like I need to actually make some money, and it's not bad if I make some money. Growing up a pastor's kid, and then going into like, basically missionary work for a bit, being a volunteer in West Africa, any money that you raised had to go to what you were doing, and you weren't really allowed to have any left over to enjoy. And that's a horrible way to live. But I thought it was a very good way to live for a long time, until I realized just how much stress I was putting myself through and how vulnerable I was making myself. Like, it's easy to take advantage of people that are desperate and that don't have any money and that are on the edge, and whose lives could be ruined with one fell swoop of any bad luck, even, or one bad choice or whatever. And I also grew up believing that, wouldn't have said I believed this, but I definitely grew up believing, or with the impact of the belief that, failures of that kind, or running out of money, having any financial struggles and so forth, was a signal that you were doing something wrong, that something was wrong with you, and that you were failing, or that you were, in sin, or who knows what. When in reality, the system is set up not in your favor, and you are living with these limiting beliefs that are setting you up to fail as well. So it's cyclical. So I let it all go. I refocused, and this summer especially, I think, things really felt like they finally got back on track, and I was feeling better and better about, what we'd done with Paris in My Pocket. Starting to get back towards vlogging, which has been good. I rebooted my vlog in the wrong direction and then corrected that recently, and I think we're doing well with that. I hope you're enjoying it. I feel like I've definitely lost some people along the way, that and rightfully so. I think I lost myself, and there are a lot of people. Thank you to all of you who stayed with me and are along for the journey, with good and bad here. But, I need to earn some people back. I need to earn some people's viewership, patronage, just interest back. And that's totally fair. But I feel like we're in the right place to do that. And in the midst of all this, my buddy Jeff, who I lived with after college, and who I was in his wedding after that, and then, he's a good friend that I've just stayed in contact with ever since college. We met each other, I think, my freshman year of college. He and I, he's like one of my few friends left from college, actually. And we've always wanted to work together on something. We've had little plots and plans along the way, but it's just never worked out. The time has never worked. He's a developer. He's had a side gig for the last, I think, 5 years. I don't remember how long it was. He was working on a cool project, but it just wasn't going where he wanted. And so he finally gave it a time limit, where he was like, all right, if things don't change or go the way that I am hoping by this time, then, I'm going to move on to something else. And his cousin, mutual friend, Nolan, who you've seen in the vlog, you've seen both Jeff and Nolan in my vlog in the past, was like, well, you should reach out to Jay. Like, Jay's always got stuff going on. Like, why don't you see what he's got going on? And Jeff reached out, say, hey man, I'd like to come on and work with you on whatever it is you're working on. And that was amazing. Like, I'm super into that, because I was like, yeah, man, like that would be great. However, I've learned a lot of lessons, so I'm definitely putting my ambitious game project on hold, but I think we can do something in between. I think we can do something where, instead of trying to go out there and make this massive thing, like, let's just turn back to my audience, which is what I'm doing right now. In general, it's like, let's just come back to the audience I have, who are amazing, who offer so much, who, actually show up. I already have the attention of these people that we could make their time in Paris better. Like, why don't we take these people that are already looking to me to make their time in Paris better and give them a tool that will do that? I've been contacted by a bunch of companies that are trying to do similar things lately. It's really interesting, and I've had some conversations with them. A lot of people that want me to work with them on their product, but I would like to actually just own the vertical. Like, I would like to make something that I can control, that we can tweak and really refine to be good for my audience. And specifically, I don't need a generic tool that, is kind of all over the place and doesn't really do what I'm imagining. Like, I have an idea for something that will make your time here better, that will remove stress, that'll help you plan, but also remove the need for like on the fly research, that basically brings my guide to you wherever you are, and in a way that keeps it relevant and timely. And so I have these ideas, right? It's simplified, much simplified from the game, which had a lot of issues, especially I think for tourists. The game was could be fun, but would be not really the right fit. I think doing something more like a guide, an interactive guide that could have some game elements to it, like I'd still like it to be fun, is a better first step. And then the game stuff might be better for people who are here longer term. Something we're going to figure out and talk about, and then obviously be available to tourists. But I think if you're just visiting, it'd probably be more useful to have some orientation materials, all the stuff that I've written. My guide is very extensive. Like, I've written a lot of like essays on where to stay, where to go, but turning those into interactive tools as much as we can, so that if you're sitting there and you want to read a little bit and you want to see, okay, what did Jay say about this or whatever, you could, but you also could just go out, explore the city, and then on the fly get the information you need to make your time better. How we do that exactly is the trick. Now we're at the point of execution and actually making that happen, which is the hardest part. Like, how you can have all ideas all day and you can plan stuff forever, but now we have to make it work. So the idea is that instead of buying my guide, I got to figure out exactly how to word this and how we build this part out. But it'd be basically like, when you buy my guide, you could put it that way, it gives you access to the app. So I'm thinking like in terms of like buying access or membership or something, but like it wouldn't be a subscription. Like if you bought it once, you'd have it for life is what I'm thinking. And that eliminates the need to update the guide and so forth. And I think like if you look at like Rick Steves or something, if you're going to buy an updated guide, you have to buy the new version, right? But I always tried to give people one update for free of my guide. Like in the old system, I would update it, and then I ended up giving everyone a free update. And then, you're just trying to say like, well, look, like it'd be nice if you come back 3 years later if you pay for the new information. But I also don't think that that's entirely necessary, and I would rather that people just get it and enjoy it and makes their time here better. And then like we will still be able to earn off of the referral fees and so forth from within the app and the people that we are able to arrange that with, that we send you to. The referrals side of things, for transparency, is never going to be 100%, like, because I don't think we're going to be able to work with everybody that I refer you to, but that's not going to stop me from referring you to them, because my main goal is always going to be like to make your time here better. And I think the two ways we do that are by removing all the stress and then by adding fun and good experiences. And the good experiences is foundational. And so all the places I recommend you to ultimately are just going to be good. We just have to come up with a tier system, because when we're talking about the referral stuff, that implies like an engagement with them to make your time even more special. So if I'm going to ask them to have a discount or to give you a free shot of espresso with your carrot cake or something, who knows? That's when we're going to be like, okay, like if you want to kind of enter into the second tier of recommendation, where it's like all these places are good, but these places are working with us and they're going to give you a freebie. And then these places, like just kind of letting you know what the tiering is of like what your experience could be, and what the relationship we have with them is. That's what I've got to kind of figure out, in the sense that like, I think that ends up making it just worthwhile to maintain an openness, as far as, especially like you buy access once and you keep it forever. But I also want to make sure to balance, like, I don't want to not corrupt, but I don't want to like influence, or I mean maybe corrupt. I don't want to negatively affect the experience you have, because I'm trying to direct you towards certain people over others too much. Like, I would like there to be just like, hey, I'm here. Here are 3 coffee shops around. This one is actually working with us, and they're going to give you like a discount. But these 2 are also really good. And actually this one over here has the best latte of the 3. So maybe just go for that one anyways. like I just want there to always be honesty and transparency, which is, I think, just incredibly important. And especially because if you're making something like this where you're sending people places, you're recommending things to them, trust is the number one most important element, and you can't mess with that. Like, the trust has to always be there. People have to know that when they go to the places you're sending them, that there's a very, very high likelihood that they're going to enjoy it. Otherwise, the whole thing is useless. So that's something that's very, very worth protecting. But I still want to be able to bring these places on board as much as possible, if not all of them. It'd be great if we could all of them. Because then if we can give you a unique experience where when you go in and you say, hey, I've got Jay's guide, and you like tap in with your phone, they register that, then, being able to get some little perks and bonuses. I know that not everyone's going to be in it for that, because not everyone cares. They're just they just want to go to a good place. But for me, like, trying to find fun ways of making it special and just mutually beneficial to everyone. I wrote originally, when I created this years ago, one of my guiding principles was that everyone wins. It's like the places we're sending people to win, the people we're sending win, and that we win. That everybody, that it's just a virtuous cycle, that nobody's losing out, nobody's having to be sacrificial to make these things happen. That everybody understands, like, hey, we're all here for a good time. We're all doing business in one form or another. Like, this is how we actually improve things. And somebody actually told me recently that if I do that, like, where I was thinking about having a user recommendation, not recommendation, but like user reports or user feedback, where when you leave a place, you could tell us, like, how was it? Give us like your review and so forth, even if it's just 1 out of 5 stars, whatever. But then in the top 10%, we actually give, like, speaking of like highlighting places, the top 10% of user selected places would get like a little gold star that you could see. And then the bottom 10%, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't see, but we would be watching to see if maybe we relegate them out and bring someone else in that would do a better job of serving you. And I told someone that recently, and they're like, if that's successful, you might single-handedly improve the service experience in Paris. And I was like, that would be great. I don't plan on taking credit for it, but if we could just get the service industry levels a little higher around, that's a win for me just on my daily life. So all of this, there's so much that I could talk about, and there's so much going on, but the hope is that right now the roadmap is basically that we would like to be testing this winter. I should have something in my hands this week or so where I get to start playing with it from Jeff's side, because Jeff has been working on it for a couple months now. It'll be very simple to start, but hopefully like February or March, we'll actually have something we can share with you that some of you who are coming this winter and spring would actually be able to start playing with and testing. And then if that goes well, I'm sure we'll find lots of problems, but like as long as the process continues and we are refining it and improving it, if we can get it to a place where it's a really good experience out of the gate, like, and it has to be a good experience, like it has to be really good. We cannot shortchange the experience that we're creating. Then hopefully by next spring, summer, we will have something for you that you could buy access to and get on the ground and just have a great time. And there's lots of fun stuff we could do with it. It's so tempting to just ramble on and tell you all about the features that I'm imagining and the ways in which we'll be able to just help connect you with the city better. But first, we got to actually make the thing, and we got to make the very core elements work. That is first and foremost. If we can make those work, and if we can deliver the content to you that you're expecting, the recommendations, the information about the city, and about what to do, how to get around, all those things, just put those in your hand. Really put Paris in your pocket. If we can do that as a baseline, that will be a huge success. And then it's a foundation that we can build off of that we can expand to other places, and hopefully we can then go back to my idea of a game. That is what I would really like to get back to at some point, and we'll have the foundations built for that. And then we just have to figure out some other not insignificant things to make that a fun and engaging experience as well. So that is basically the story of the app so far. That's where we're at. I don't actually, the other challenge right now is trying to figure out how to brand everything, as far as like, I need to be strengthening and focusing on like my personal brand and putting everything under that. Something that I was trying to get away from a little bit, but I realized was stupid and was just me being unhealthy as well. My motivations behind it were coming from a place of not being healthy and being scared. So Paris in My Pocket, like the video series, that plays very easily into this app, but it also limits us to Paris. So, we got to figure out some stuff like that. But I will keep you posted as it goes. As I start going out, I've been going out and checking out some places lately. And as I start vlogging more and going out and checking them out, I will tell you more. I'll drop details in the vlog and I will keep you up to date. And then obviously on here in the podcast, I can go into greater detail. If there's anything that interests you or you'd like me to talk about more in the future, we can do another update in a month or two, and I can give you the lowdown on where we are. So anyways, this is a longer monologue, but that's more or less the unstructured history of the app to date, starting from 2012 or 2013, basically, until now, with real development, like actual coding happening only in the last year and a half, which is crazy. But development before that in the analog and all my planning and so on and so forth. So thank you for listening. Hope you're doing really well wherever it is you are, and that you have a bright and wonderful day before you. The weather here in Paris is insanely good, which is wonderful for us today. Hopefully not an ill portent for the future of humanity, but hey, why not end this on a weather-related dark note? And I will see you again in the very near future. In the next day or two, I'm sure. All right, thank you, and goodbye.